Hey, I'm Josh, and you're watching Quality Control. Today, we are going to compare the results of a $5,500 coffee roaster and a $5 coffee roaster. Let's get into it. First off, there is a small fire hazard. First off, a coffee sample roaster is specifically for taking a small amount of coffee, tasting it, and determining the value, determining the final use for that coffee, right? It's to get to know the coffee. And Koala is this amazing company who makes these beautiful sample roasters. This is the newest model. It roasts 100 grams at a time. And this is a popcorn popper that I picked up at a thrift store. I have modified this slightly. I took the top off with the hood and put in a sink strainer because it fits perfectly. Biggest differences for those that, care about the technical aspects of the hardware. This has a nice built-in on-off switch. This does not, so I added one. Okay, let's roast these coffees. Also, quick disclaimer, this is not an in-depth how-to tutorial about the Koala. This is just comparing how these two electronic appliances roast coffee and see how the final result compares. Today we will be roasting Panama Geisha from La Mula, given to me by the legend, the G, Willem Boot himself. This is a really beautiful coffee, and so I think it'll be interesting to take, maybe a delicate, floral, complex tasting coffee and seeing what a simple sample roast can do with that. All right, we're gonna set this little bastard aside for now, and we're gonna preheat the Koala so that it's ready to roast, and we're gonna measure out our 100 gram sample. So we'll go ahead and connect here, preheat. Okay, we are ready to roast. Pour our coffee in. To the top chamber. Dump it. Make sure it's all in there. And then turn another 180 to start. What is going on inside the Koala roasting chamber is there are vented holes for the fan so that it's creating this vortex. You don't want the coffee sitting there or it's just going to burn. And interestingly, we'll find a very similar model in the other roaster. The Koala has just entered its cooling phase. So the roast is pretty much done at this point. The chaff is being collected here at the bottom, and we're about to drop the beans. Boom. Roast complete. The chaff is beautifully collected here. We're gonna swap that one out for an extra glass and vacuum the coffee from the roasting chamber to the jar. There we have our beautifully roasted coffee from La Mula Farm in Panama, roasted by the Koala Pro 100. It looks great, it smells great. We're gonna let this coffee rest a bit before trying it, and let's get into the popcorn popper. And here we have the amazing Wherever popcorn pumper in vintage yellow, hard plastic. The electronics inside here, this may cause great debate, but they are very much similar components. There is 110 power source, there is a heating element, there is just a little cylinder with vents 360 around that, so when the fan hits it creates a vortex. Now obviously these are wildly different electronics, and no shade to Koala for creating something so beautiful that connects people and helps them taste coffees and all those things. But I am still very curious if we can put the same coffee in a popcorn popper and get even similar results. So let's do this. If you just plug this thing in, it's just on. So I put in a little switch. We're gonna pop this in. See, on. And that thing like immediately gets hot. Just like hot air. It's just this chamber with no controls, no rules. Like this thing is from a bygone day, if you will, of kitchen appliances. We're gonna measure out 100 grams of the same beautiful coffee. 100 grams going in. Basically how this is gonna work is when I turn this on, there's gonna be hot air circulating, a very similar vortex in the popcorn popper as the Koala. The differences are all we have control of is on or off. It's all gas, no brakes. So I've added a thermometer, and we're just gonna time it and just kind of see how this goes. There is a small fire hazard. However, this thing nicely does collect the chaff at the top here of this essentially chicken wire. So I've made some slight modifications. We have the power switch, we have the thermometer, the mesh sink strainer, and that's all we're gonna do. We're going to have a rough idea of the bean temperature in the roasting chamber, and we're gonna start our timer. So here goes. So far so good. The biggest difference is that with almost zero controls here, the rate of rise is going to just be off the charts with this. It's going to get hotter, it's going to be underdeveloped and potentially overcooked, but it looks good, it smells good. We're just going to wait for first crack here we're almost at 3 minutes. You can see the chaff collecting up here. So far, no major problems. Right around 430 Fahrenheit, first crack. A little early, but actually not bad. We've got first crack of the coffee going strong. You can hear that popping. We've got all that chaff, this papery stuff building up at the top. Coffee's staying in there, nothing's burning. At this point, we need to know, like, we can't drop the temperature, so we just have to get the beans out there pretty soon here. Okay, just based on sight and smell alone, we're gonna call it. Kill the power. We wanna immediately dump this coffee out so it doesn't sit in there and burn any longer. Okay, there we have it. Little residual smoking because we didn't cool down. We just dropped it straight out of its little chamber. But the little popcorn popper did it. It worked. It didn't catch on fire this time. That's a good thing. A little sketchy how warm the plastic is on this, I'm not gonna lie. Like any machine warms up on the outside, but that's quite warm. We're gonna take our coffee from the popcorn popper and our coffee from the Ikawa, and really interesting. We're not ready to taste these. They still need to rest a few hours, up to a day. So we're gonna taste them in just a minute here because of cinema magic. Just looking at these, I don't have an Agtron or like an actual color reader, but you know, the human eye is pretty good, and they look pretty dang close. Like, the Ikawa definitely looks a bit more consistent in the color and the overall roast level. The popcorn popper definitely has a few that are, you know, too light, a few that are too dark, but overall, like, much more consistent than you would expect because, again, the underlying thermodynamics here are essentially the same. Here's side by side. Okay, here we have the Ikawa sample roast. And here we have the popcorn popper sample roast. Okay, we have now let these rest for over a day and ground the coffee to, like a drip cupping grind size. So here's the Ikawa, and here is the popcorn popper. So obviously at a glance it just looks like coffee, but when we taste it we're gonna really hopefully see some differences. If not, I'm not very good at my job. In theory, these really are very similar technologies. Not the Bluetooth and the app and the capabilities of the all-powerful Ikawa, but what's actually happening to the coffee is very similar. There's hot air, it's in a metal chamber, and it's vented so that it goes in a vortex. And because of that, we have the chaff separated in both cases. We're not burning anything, nothing's resting, and getting cooked unevenly against a metal surface. And so we have, even though there were very different times and temperatures involved, there's something to say for the airflow as a major component here. Another disclaimer, I'm not a roaster. This is really just for fun. I hope you guys enjoy this. If so, subscribe. Let's try these. It may or may not be worth mentioning that the first time I filmed this, the chaff caught on fire. And the popcorn popper, which was exciting, but that's just because there's too much hot air blowing up at it the whole time, and so while the beans are circulating, you just have this papery stuff at the top just getting blasted. So it was fine. These are a standard size cupping bowl. They're about 7¼ ounces or close to 230 mil. So the magical ratio is 8¼ grams of coffee to 150 milliliters of water. In this case, that means we're gonna do about 12½ grams of coffee and then fill these bowls to the brim and taste them. Okay, definitely similar. There are some differences. If I were trying these blind, I would definitely think they were slightly different coffees, but we'll see how they pan out here. And I get to cheat and still re-sniff the dry. Yeah, so same thing going on. In the Ikawa roast, sweeter and smoother. In the popcorn popper roast, we have a little bit more funk, a little unevenness going on. But they all have that nice floral, orange blossomy thing. I'm really excited to taste these. We're gonna break a huge difference going on, right? Like the Ikawa and the popcorn do not look the same. And which one's better or worse or what will happen here, time will tell. Right now is when, for those of you who have cupped coffee before, this is when you burn your tongue and can't taste anything for the rest of the day. So I'm just gonna wait and let these come down closer to a drinkable temperature. Actually, I'm gonna check. Which normally you wouldn't actually check. You know, you can touch the outside to kind of get a feel for it, but maybe I'll integrate this into future cuppings. I don't know. Probably not worth the trouble, but. So if we boil water and just off boil close to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, you pour it within these 5-6 minutes, it's only come down to like 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Not terrible, but still a little too hot. I mean, they looked the same and that was encouraging, but now they don't, and they don't smell the same. Yep, there it is. Okay, I've tried both of them. I'm gonna try this a few more times as the temperature continues to decline, but out the gate, this is clearly the same coffee, treated differently. They're actually both acceptable roasts. Looking forward to the arguments in the comments about this, but the Ikawa Sustainable Harvest Roast brings out the floral notes, the sweetness, the nuttiness, the sugar cane, the orange, like the good things that you would want out of a world-class Panama geisha. At the same time, these are muted. These flavors are hidden in the popcorn popper roast because of that unevenness of the roast. Some beans are darker, some are lighter. We don't have the temperature control. It's a little smoky, it's a little ashy. It's good, like it's better than most coffees out there, but it's not comparable the way I wanted it to be to the Ikawa. So in a pinch, you could theoretically roast something on a popcorn popper or similar cheap mechanism and kind of get an idea of the decency of that coffee, but without the temperature control and timing and the greater functionality, right? But obviously that's not the point of this. We already knew that the Ikawa knows what it's doing. But as this cools, you know, that's just first impressions. Let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, so not surprising that as it's cooling down to a more ambient temperature, there are more similarities. The acidity comes out, right? The tongue is a muscle. Heat makes it scared, it retracts, and actually your taste buds are not as sensitive to like extremely hot things. Yeah, tasting them in the reverse order, like going from bad to good. It's like all of the sweetness just suddenly shows up and it's amazing. But yeah, the clear winner is the Ikawa. If you're going to roast coffee, you know, it's worth your time to buy this or a similar machine and treat the coffee with some decency, which I, you know, abused with the popcorn popper. But it is important to know that it doesn't matter if you have the best coffee in the world, you could totally annihilate it by roasting it badly or brewing it badly or a million other things. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I took 3 years off of YouTube and we're back, baby. So smash that subscribe, like, all that good stuff, and we'll see you next time. If you know, should work with one of these at home, fire extinguishers are your friend.